trade isn't only important for raw materials, trade is important for all economies. And that is because raw materials are at the start of the value chain. Every product that we have has been a raw material at some point. And while all economies do some extraction of their natural resources, you can only extract what you actually have. And what you have is determined by geological processes that happened millions and billions of years ago, which means you might just not have to extract what you need. You might not have enough, or you might not have the quality that you need, which is especially true if you manufacture high-tech applications, which often just need very minute amounts of a material, but in very high quality. And there you can also see how trade can actually be a weak point in your supply chain, because your whole supply chain is very easily disrupted if you basically pull out the lowest card in a house of cards. And the supply chains are also highly interwoven. You have raw materials that are extracted in one country and processed in another and refined in another and made into semi-finished products and so forth in other countries. And so when you kind of prohibit the trade of raw materials, you actually prohibit the value added of the value chain. There has been one very well-known case, which is the 2010 rare earth trade disputes, where exactly this happened. It actually had peaked in 2010, but it started in 2006. And what happened was that China, who's the quasi-monopoly on rare earths, actually put in trade restrictions, export quotas from 2006 on rare earths. In 2010, they decreased those quotas significantly, which as a result made prices of rare earths skyrocket. And the countries depending on these rare earths got very concerned. In 2012, the US put forward a case to the WTO, which was later joined by the EU, the Japan, and other countries. But it still took until 2015 to actually get those restrictions removed by the WTO. And then advanced economies depend nowadays still on rare earth supply coming mainly from China for an increasing amount of climate change mitigation. They are used in wind generators, they are used in electric motors. And for digitalization, they are still used in data storage, for example, or in LED technology. And you can see how easy it is to weaponize raw materials and to threaten other economies. And so we also need to look at where value is actually generated here. So the raw material usually is not the place where you make the most value, at least not in advanced economies. It's the products. That's why people have looked at the price of rare materials or raw materials in an iPhone, and it turns out it's around 10 euros, but you sell it for about 1,000. And so the value added comes at the end of the value chain. It's when you manufacture, the more you process, the more value you add. And in most advanced economies, rare materials extraction is actually a very small part of GDP and a very small part of employment. However, there are countries where actually raw materials and extraction makes up a relatively big portion of their GDP and their employment. And they are highly dependent on trade because you need to sell these. But sometimes in a bid to do this, these resource-rich countries put in export restrictions, quotas, taxes, duties, or just outright export prohibitions. This is usually done in a bid to protect their domestic value chains and to actually move higher up the value chains. And that is quite rightly so. You should have more value in your country than just what the raw materials give you. But a 2017 report of the OECD actually showed that there is no significant benefit to doing this. The countries that have put in export restrictions actually have had less revenue and have had less money to invest in their domestic value chains. Whereas other countries that haven't done this, but have used the revenue of the raw material to actually build up their supply chains or their value chains, used it to increase education, invested in infrastructure, and created services around raw materials extraction, for example, geological knowledge or engineering, and they have fared much better.